Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. You're back with me, Tasnim Lokman, at Sinar Daily's Top News Podcast. And today we are going to talk about very serious things, very important things, and very key things that's about to happen in 2024. And the main scope is politics and economy. And today with me is Dr. Terence Gomez. He is a very, very key figure in our country's political and economic dynamics landscape. Thank you so much, Prof. You were a professor at University Malaya. I'm correct, right? Am I correct? Yes. Okay.
You're correct.
Yes. So thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it because you are like, when we talk about politics, we talk about economy, you are the person because you understand the scope and the nexus of what it means to have the economic side and the political side to merge together and become what is Malaysia today. Am I right?
That's right.
Okay, so we have a lot to uncover today, but we're going to talk about the most current and pertinent things happening in Malaysia on the political and economic scale right now. And I think the first thing we have to talk about, whatever it is about Tun Dr Mahathir Mohamad and also Tun Daim, who has been charged in court for corruption and everything that has happened. I haven't been able to go deep dive in detail, but it's about things that has happened throughout the decades in Malaysia. So, Dr. Terence, what is happening and what is the whole scheme of things that is happening?
Yeah, first, my area of research is not so much the nexus between politics and the economy, but politics and business.
Oh, okay.
And that's important.
All right.
Because this nexus between politics and business is at the root of all the problems that we are seeing today.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about business now having a close relationship with politics, the roots of it can be traced back to Mahathir and Daim Zainuddin.
Okay.
But to be fair to them, this really started in the 1970s when Umno decided to buy a newspaper, the New Straits Times, and through a company called Fleet Group. And the treasurer at that time was Tunku Razak Hamza.
Okay.
And Razak was put in charge of Fleet Group by Tun Razak to raise funds for Umno so that Umno will be independent of the MCA and businesses for their financing, to finance the elections. So that was a triggering moment in history. We move forward from the 1970s to 1984. Mahathir had come to power in 1981, and then there was a serious battle between Razak and Musa Hitam for the deputy presidency. And Razak was a powerful finance minister.
Okay.
And Mahathir, to my mind, did feel threatened by Razak.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons why he supported Musa. After the second battle between Razak and Musa, Razak was shifted from finance to trade and industry, and Daim Zainuddin was made finance minister. This was unprecedented. Daim Zainuddin was not a politician. He had been made a senator.
Okay.
He had business involvement. He had a lot of business involvement going back to the 1970s too. And so when he was appointed, nobody had expected this. When Mahathir and Daim came together, we had a prime minister who never in history before had we seen this, who was so interested in business.
Okay.
Mahathir himself had been a director of a GLC, a government-linked company called Kumpulan Fima. Mahathir had advocated for business people, for the government to help create Bumiputra corporate captains.
Okay.
And then we have him bringing in Daim Zainuddin, that time seen as a corporate tycoon. So the coming together of a politician and a corporate tycoon together was a very epochal moment. That's when we began to see a different kind of mix between politics and business. Before Umno, Fleet Group under Razak just owned enterprises.
Okay.
They bought NST, they bought Bank of Commerce, they bought companies. But here, and it was like an investment arm. But here, we are now seeing a mix.
Okay.
Politics entering into business. And here now we see Umno through Daim Zainuddin. Daim wore three hats. He was finance minister, he was Umno treasurer, and he was a private businessman. And in each capacity, he had control of a segment of the corporate sector.
Okay.
And all of this got mixed together. And that's when we really see the nexus between politics and business emerging in a big way. Subsequently, Mahathir introduced privatization.
Yes.
When he introduced privatization, it allowed him to take assets belonging to the government and put them in private hands.
Okay.
And that's when a new battle started, because many of the government's most lucrative assets were being privatized to well-connected business people, some of them closely associated with Daim Zainuddin too. Sports Toto went to, for example, Vincent Tan. This is just one example, and there was a lot of feuding about that. And there were a lot of other examples at that time, and among the people who benefited included Daim's protégés, Halim Shah, Tajuddin Ramli, Samshuddin Abu Hassan. This led to another battle in 1987, Mahathir versus Razali.
Oh, okay.
And Razali said Mahathir and Daim were taking assets belonging to the government and putting them in private hands, when the agenda of the government was the new economic policy, Dasa Ekonomi Baru, which was to help develop all Bumiputras. Now only a segment of the Bumiputras were getting all the government's assets. So a big fight started, and Mahathir nearly lost.
Okay. Yeah, this is semangat.
1987.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, money had become very important in UMNO. At this point, to win elections, you needed money, and lots of it. UMNO had become monetized by the nexus between politics and business. And that corrupted the system, that corrupted the political system. And this was already dangerous. This was a dangerous point, and we saw that in the 1987 election. It was very worrying. And after the election, UMNO was declared, Mahathir barely won, Razali challenged him, UMNO was declared illegal in court, and UMNO Baru came up, Razali was kicked out, and he formed Semangat Bapuanam.
Okay.
And a new trend began. Daim Zainuddin left the finance ministry, and Anwar Ibrahim was made finance minister. The next epochal election was 1993. By this time, privatization was in full swing. A lot of projects had been privatized. There was a big feud in UMNO about who was getting all the privatized projects. And in the 1993 election, there was a challenge by Anwar to become deputy president of UMNO. And that led to another big battle in UMNO, and a lot of money went into the campaign. Millions. So I've given you here now a brief history going up to 1993.
Yeah.
Which already indicates how the nexus between politics and business had corrupted the political system and deeply monetized UMNO.
Would you say this was the period that sparked what we are suffering from now?
What I've spoken so far speaks to the roots,
The roots,
foundations that were laid, which have now become a cancer that has permeated the body politic.
Okay.
Here I'm actually quoting Mahathir.
Okay.
Mahathir himself called this a cancer. Money politics was a cancer that had permeated UMNO.
Yes.
That was the foundation. But the real issue, the break, that now shapes the discourses or the debates that we're having today was 1997.
1997, okay.
1997, 1998. In 1997, we had the Asian financial crisis, and this nexus between politics and business and creating cronies and politicians in business and parties in business. So many things were happening simultaneously. The whole thing collapsed.
Okay.
And it collapsed because the growth was not by creating a company from the ground up organically, but by getting loans. And most of the loans came from government-controlled banks.
Okay.
The banks gave these people the loans to buy up these assets. Privatization then boomed, the stock market boomed, and then we have this serious crisis in 1997.
Okay.
And then the issue came up of bailouts.
Bailouts, yes.
Who do we bail out?
Yes.
And one bailout was of the Renung Group, controlled by Halim Shah, who was associated with Daim Zainuddin. The other bailout was of Mirzan Mahathir, the son of Mahathir Mohamad. And the person who was opposed to these bailouts was then Finance Minister Anwar Ibrahim. And so a feud started between the two of them, which resulted in the 1998 political crisis, where Anwar was ousted from UMNO, and Mahathir appointed Daim Zainuddin to return as Finance Minister. Today, what we are witnessing goes back to what happened in that period that I just described.
Okay. That's It's insane to see that 1998 was 25 years, 20, 20, 25, 26 years ago. And people are experiencing it now, you know, like...
You see, it may have happened 25 years ago.
Yes.
Does that mean that we don't discuss it and we say it happened a quarter of a century ago? Why bring it up now?
Yes, yes. What should...
We cannot take that argument.
Okay.
Because that laid the foundation for things to come.
Okay.
And it grew. It expanded. What I didn't tell you was, in 1998, when these bailouts occurred, and then Anwar was ousted,
Yeah.
businessmen who were associated with politicians who were ousted, including Anwar, lost their assets.
Yes.
They were taken over by the government. Many of the cronies who were bailed out, their assets were nationalized.
Okay.
By the year 2000, 2001, most of the assets which had been channeled through privatization into private hands had been renationalized.
Okay.
Many of the companies that were in debt were renationalized. So what emerged in 2001 was a GLC ecosystem.
Okay.
When they were nationalized, they all became GLCs.
JLCs.
And GLCs then became a powerful economic institution controlled by the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister.
Okay.
And in 2001, Mahathir decided one morning that he's going to be Finance Minister too. Daim Zainuddin was left the scene. Some say he resigned. I would
Okay.
argue that he was removed.
Okay.
There was a feud between the two of them. That's my argument.
Okay.
And Mahathir decided, look, I can't trust the finance ministers, the ones I've had in the past, Razak, Anwar, and now Daim, even my good friend.
Yeah.
So I am going to become finance minister.
Yeah.
And that's improper. It's misgovernance of the highest sort.
Okay.
The prime minister cannot be the exchequer.
Yeah.
Cannot be the finance minister. Where's
Yeah.
the check and balance?
Yeah.
But he did it.
Mm-hmm.
And then that meant that the prime minister controlled a huge segment of the corporate sector through the GLC ecosystem.
Yeah.
That foundation is important to understand because later we will discuss 1MDB.
Okay.
1MDB is a GLC.
Yes.
Many people forget that.
Because we keep using the word foreign.
Yes, we think it's something
yeah.
that happened abroad.
Yeah.
But 1MDB is a GLC. And the person who controlled it was the finance minister. And the finance minister was Najib,
Who was also the prime minister.
So
Okay.
what Mahathir did in 2001 and the feuds that we saw in 1997, 1998 had serious implications in what's happening today.
But when you say it that way, the current prime minister is also the current finance minister in terms of Datuk Seri Anwar.
I totally agree. Anwar Ibrahim himself, when in opposition, had said the prime minister should not be the finance minister. It's in their manifesto.
Yes.
It's in their
Exactly.
2018 manifesto.
Exactly.
So why did he do? Because there is a political dimension to all this.
Okay.
And that we must understand too.
All right.
Because of the nexus between politics and business, we cannot discuss business without discussing politics. And we cannot discuss politics without discussing business.
Yeah.
Because when we talk business, a key actor are the GLCs.
JLCs.
And if the finance minister controls the GLCs, the finance minister is a very powerful politician with significant influence in the corporate sector.
Okay.
When you have a hung parliament,
Yes.
when you have a makeshift coalition brought together by the king, not by the politicians themselves in agreement with each other, it was a forced merger, to be fair. And you don't trust politicians across the board
Yes.
at that time, what then do you do? Would a prime minister who is weak, who's not there because he had the majority, he was there because of negotiations,
Yes.
you have a weak prime minister, would a weak prime minister want to make someone finance minister who will then become extremely powerful economically, who can use his control over the vast GLC ecosystem to further consolidate his own position too? And remember, by this time, we saw it under Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin. To consolidate power, what did Muhyiddin do? He enlarged the cabinet. He was a weak prime minister too.
But it was a huge cabinet.
He enlarged the cabinet. He was a weak prime minister too, brought together by the king.
Yes.
Yes, fine. But then how do you consolidate his position? He himself said, make MPs GLC directors.
Oh.
And a lot of politicians were made
Well, yes.
GLC directors. And they were made directors of important institutions which are statutory bodies located in the rural heartland. The statutory bodies like Kesadah and Ketenggah,
Yeah.
which have deep inroads into the Malay heartland states. And that's where the real contestation was going on.
Yes.
So if you control the statutory bodies and if you control where they are situated, which is the Malay heartland states, and they can channel concessions down to the ground,
Yes.
surely you're going to get a
Yes.
lot of support.
Yes,
Very
definitely.
important. And many politicians said, thank you very much. I want this position
Yes.
because it will help me get a strong grassroots base.
Yes.
You see how important the GLC system was?
It-
Going back to 1987, 1988 feud, it created the system. The system now is a real problem to us. And whoever becomes finance minister becomes very powerful.
Yeah.
And so the prime minister is worried, if I make him the prime minister, will he use the GLC system in a way which will undermine me?
Okay.
Those questions may be going on in Anwar's mind.
Okay.
So I can understand why he became finance minister. Is it right? No. Of course not. Under no circumstances can the prime minister be the finance minister. You sort it out some other way. And the way to sort it out is review the GLC ecosystem.
Okay. How can we go into the
Yes, we
GLC
can.
system? Okay.
I'm glad you brought it up
Okay.
because we must talk reforms.
Yes. Yes.
Today, the government is saying we must fight corruption.
Yes.
They are saying corruption is endemic, systemic. I'm quoting the Prime Minister.
Yes.
Where is the location of grand corruption? They just talk rasuah.
Yes.
Mereka hanya bincang rasuah. They do not talk corruption. Mereka tidak bincang korupsi.
Okay.
There is a difference
Okay.
between rasuah, petty corruption,
Petty corruption.
and corruption, which is grand corruption like 1MDB,
Okay.
LCS,
Yes.
which is LTAT,
Yes.
and Bosted, which are GLCs.
Yes. Exactly. LCS people people have forgotten about LCS, I feel.
Unfortunate, because that's another huge problem
It's
of the
insane.
country or the
It's
economy.
insane, right?
They are GLCs.
Yes.
The largest, most significant corruption cases in this country, which we have seen so far, I'm not talking petty corruption, large scale corruption, involved GLCs.
Yeah.
So, of course, if you want to talk about reforms, the first thing you do is you reform the GLC ecosystem.
Yes.
Now, has the government spoken of reforming the GLC ecosystem?
No.
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 The government even today appoints politicians to sit as directors of GLCs
Yes.
to consolidate their position.
Yes.
This is the problem in the country today. The rhetoric is anti-corruption. The reality is don't touch the GLC ecosystem because I need that to consolidate power.
Power. Okay.
It's too powerful. It's too economically entrenched.
Yeah.
And through the GLC ecosystem, I can channel concessions to the constituencies where I need support.
Yes.
That's abuse of power too.
Yes.
They're not giving concessions to areas that most need it.
Yes.
They're giving concessions to areas that they most need support from.
Yes. Exactly.
There's a big difference here.
Exactly.
And that's an abuse of government's resources, which they can easily do. The GLC ecosystem is a shadow economy. It's huge. It is so huge that the politicians love it because nobody knows about
When
it.
you talk about huge, right? Like what's the number? Like how do people, the laymen, the young kids, the Gen Zs understand? How should we understand it?
I wrote a book entitled Minister of Finance Incorporated.
Okay.
And that's when we realized how big the system was.
Okay.
I'm glad you raised that question because when we spoke to bureaucrats, including Ministry of Finance
Okay.
officials, they themselves said they have no idea how big this ecosystem is. It is so huge. According to some estimates, they have 40% of the market capitalization of the Bursa.
Oh.
I think it could be more than that.
Okay.
And that's only publicly listed companies.
Yeah.
What about the unlisted companies? What about the JLICs like Khazanah, PNB,
Yeah.
LTAT, Tabung Haji?
Well, all of them are
Huge.
embroiled in some sort of scandal.
all deeply implicated in major business controversies, all ultimately controlled by Minister of Finance Incorporated.
Yes.
And all of them are huge in terms of the billions of ringgits they have under their control.
Yeah.
Is there any real transparency in how they are using that money? And they own publicly listed companies.
Yes.
And these publicly listed companies own unlisted companies. And that's where all the real corruption is happening. If it's at the level of the GLICs and the publicly listed companies, they're in the public eye.
Okay.
We can see them, they're in the news. We're
Yes.
always monitoring what's happening on the stock market. We're monitoring all these publicly listed companies. They're in the public eye. When we look at the 7 GLICs that I just mentioned, they're in the public eye.
Yeah.
We're also monitoring them. But what we are not monitoring are those at the level 4. We have the Prime Minister, Finance Minister level 1, GLICs level 2, publicly listed companies level 3. Then we have the subsidiaries level 4, and then the associate companies and their subsidiaries level 5.
Yeah.
It's 4 and 5, levels 4 and 5, where we just don't know how big that ecosystem is, because we've got so many subsidiaries.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we don't know what they are doing in the economy. We don't know how many of them have politicians as directors. We don't know how many of them have employees who are political members of political parties. How bad is the system? And why is it when you're talking about fighting corruption, you're not talking about reform of this huge ecosystem? The government talks about enormous wastage, losses, which we must cut.
Okay.
That's where it's occurring.
Okay.
If you know it's occurring there, and I'm sure they know it's occurring there, why aren't they reforming that level? And if they cut the wastage there, do you know how much savings we will have, which we can then invest in our schools and in our hospitals? And now they're talking about cutting the pensions.
Yes. Yes.
You can't do that, you know. And social security for people with inadequate EPF savings, they're going to be suffering very soon. Then aging economy.
Yes. Oh my God. Don't even talk about aging nation. Nanti in the next 30 years, we're going to be so I'm so scared people are not, people are not procreating. That's another topic lah, but what's going to happen?
That is the point. Who is going to take care of the aging population?
Exactly.
And that is the role of the government.
Exactly.
The government is responsible for all people in the nation.
We did a quick survey. We asked people, why aren't you having children and why aren't you getting married? The economy,
Yes, you can't afford it.
You can't afford it. It's too much. Like, to think of to get married is already a whole bunch of spending expenses, and then to get married, you're bound to have children, at least 1 or 2. That's another whole bunch of expenses. And then people say it's our right. It's okay if rights, freedom, it's fine. But what's going to happen to the country, to the population in the next 30 to 40 years? And this is all.
And let me remind you one important thing. Young people today, they can't afford to buy
houses.
Housing.
Yes, exactly.
Property. It's beyond their means.
Exactly.
So if they get married and they have children, where are they going to live?
Exactly.
Are they going to live with their aging parents?
Exactly. We see it now. We see the trends. It's okay. It's nice to live with your parents because your parents are also aging. You get that relationship. But to live with like 7 people in one apartment or like one house with 3 rooms.
If I have 3 children and all my children get married and all of them live with me.
That's like a whole village. It's
in an apartment.
In an apartment. Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
Exactly. It's crazy.
Housing should not be so expensive. And the government, through the GLCs, are also actively involved in property development.
Yes.
They can create affordable housing.
Exactly.
Why isn't the government using the GLC system to solve social problems like this?
I was actually questioning, there was a project, a PPR, affordable homes project, where it's like 900 square feet with 5 rooms. Isn't that insane? Like, I'm not being privileged here. I'm just thinking like during COVID, people were stuck in their homes with in PPR flats where they had like 5 kids in one small apartment, like one small flat. It's ridiculous, and I just cannot imagine why. We've seen the worst. Why isn't some solutions or ideas coming up to solve the next 20 to 30 years?
Now, that's a good point, because since you raised those questions, you will find the answer really in this nexus between politics and business.
Okay.
It comes back to the current political system.
Okay.
The current political system is deeply fractured.
Okay.
Just a couple of months ago, we were talking about the so-called Dubai move.
Yes.
And in January, we were wondering, is this government going to still be around come January?
Exactly.
You know, so the political uncertainties.
Yes.
I don't really subscribe to the Dubai move because the government is well consolidated today.
Mm-hmm.
The most important party today is PBB in Sarawak.
Okay. Yes, I agree.
Now, they have clearly stated that they are going to stand by the unity government. We actually have political stability.
Okay.
So I don't subscribe to that. But having said that, this whole discussion on the Dubai move caused a lot of uncertainty also in the economy.
Okay.
Now, during the Dubai move, an important point that was being discussed was that a lot of money was being channeled to try and bring people to give their support
Yes.
to the other side.
Yes, millions.
This comes back to the foundation that I talked about.
Okay.
The deep monetization of the political system, that today everything runs on money.
Mm-hmm.
To quote Najib, his infamous words, cash is king.
Yes.
And that remains the order of the day.
Yes.
So here we were talking about millions of ringgit being spoken about
Yeah.
for people to shift their
Support.
allegiance,
Yeah.
their support. Now, that itself raises another important question. Where is all this money coming from?
Exactly.
Is there a hidden world, a shadow economy, through which they can raise a lot of money?
Yes.
And yes, that brings us back to questions like Mahathir and Daim and the financing of politics. There's allegations that they have a lot of money.
Yeah. Overseas.
Where is this money? Then they say, abroad.
Abroad, yeah.
And that brings us next to the next question. All these things you said to me
Yeah.
happened 25 years
Yes.
ago. Why are we talking about it today?
Yeah.
That's not true. Recently, over the recent past,
Okay.
two important events occurred. First, the release of the Panama Papers.
Yes. Panama Papers.
Subsequently, the release of the
Pandora Papers.
And in the Panama Papers and in the Pandora Papers, what was exposed? Prominent politicians and businessmen had stashed a lot of money in safe havens, tax
Yes.
havens. Should we investigate it? Yes. At that time when the thing occurred, everyone was saying, NGOs and
Yeah.
opposition was saying, investigate.
Yes.
MECC, why aren't you investigating this? How did these people acquire so much wealth? And it was stupendous. When you look at the papers and you see the amount of money that
Yes.
these people had, this is ridiculous.
Yes. You know what's insane? Like the editor who did the whole project in the States, right? I met him back in March last year. When I introduced myself, I'm from Malaysia. Wow, there's a lot of corruption there. I'm like, great. That's
Our reputation.
Yes, that's our reputation. He was like, oh, Malaysia, Panama Papers and Pandora. He was the one who, he was the chief, I think Craig Ferguson. Oh, no, okay, I can't remember his exact name, Ferguson something. But he literally was like, lots of corruption there. You know what? The day I met him was the day after Tan Sri Muhyiddin was charged in court.
First, you mentioned Muhyiddin, I'll come to him.
Okay.
But let's just stick for a while with the Pandora Papers and the Panama Papers.
Okay, yes.
I'll leave aside the businessmen, who were the politicians who were named and their family members? Mahathir's son,
Yes.
Muhyiddin's son, Najib's son, Daim and his wife and his 3 children,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Musa Aman's son, Taib Mahmud's daughter Hanifa, who's now a
The
deputy
minister,
minister,
yeah.
and his son Mahmud.
Yeah.
Named in the Pandora and Panama Papers were the children of prime ministers and chief ministers of Sabah and Sarawak.
Yes.
What does that say? Immediately a red flag goes up. Allegations of nepotism.
Yes.
How did these children get so much wealth?
Yes.
And is it a coincidence they all happen to be the children of ex-prime ministers and ex-chief ministers? And what of the corruption in Sarawak too?
Yeah.
Under Taib's regime.
Yes.
It was ridiculous the amount of corruption that was going on. The plunder of Sarawak has been well recorded.
Yes. And it's
No investigation.
Yeah.
Was it right to call for an investigation into the Pandora and Panama Papers? Yes,
Yes.
rightly so. So why are we saying these things happened 25 years ago? Why are we talking about it? Because what is in the Pandora Papers and in the Panama Papers is an outcome of what happened 25 years ago.
Yes.
In fact, 40 years ago, when Mahathir first came to power, 1984, when he appointed Daim Zainuddin, and when that nexus occurred between politics and business and became entrenched in the political system in UMNO. All that is now haunting the nation.
Yes.
That's the reason why we are where we are today. We're having all these political and economic problems because of what happened 40 years ago.
Where would we be if there wasn't any of these problems? Where would we be? What can we...
Honestly, if you ask me, if we had been more transparent and accountable, we would be a highly industrialized nation. Because the volume of money that was seeped out of
Yes.
corporate sector, out of the economy, out of the public resources that we had. We had vast public resources,
Yes.
especially oil, Petronas.
Yes.
Who controls Petronas is important. All that resource that we had, if it had been invested in the economy today, we'll be in a completely different place.
What country? What country? What can you imagine Malaysia being? What country? If
you-
it was amazing.
If you ask me, I would think we could have been like South Korea and Taiwan.
Oh wow. Okay.
More akin to, looking at Mahathir's agenda, more akin to South Korea. Because
South
South
Korea.
Korea had an authoritarian government, Park
Okay.
Chung-hee, who wanted to create dynamic, world-class companies.
Okay.
And he channeled a lot of support to them.
Okay.
And it happened. Now we have Samsung, we have
Yes.
Hyundai, we have LG. So these are major companies who in the 1960s were nowhere. Singapore was, South Korea was dirt poor,
Okay.
very poor in the 1960s.
Okay.
Taiwan is a different model. Taiwan is an economy, authoritarian state.
Yes.
Kuomintang Party, Chiang Kai-shek, expelled from China, ran away from China, came to Taiwan. It's an economy run by SMEs.
Yes.
It's an SME-based economy as opposed to Korea, which is a Shable, big business-based economy.
Yeah.
We could have gone either way.
Okay.
I would have preferred the Taiwan model. I think
Okay.
it's more equitable because SMEs where the real entrepreneurial base is. But since you pressed me to say where could we have been, in the 1970s, Korea and Taiwan were not very economically
Okay.
sound or huge.
Yeah.
Today, they are the major economies of the world.
Yeah, they are.
Look at Singapore. Singapore was dirt poor in the 1950s, 1960s.
Okay.
No resources,
Yeah.
unlike Malaysia. Look at Singapore today. I'm just comparing in the region.
Yeah. Yes.
In the
definitely.
region, where we were. The three countries I mentioned were all poor, like
Okay.
Malaysia, in the 1960s. Why are they so advanced and we so still? Now, I'd like to come back to the issue of our structure, the structure of the economy,
Okay.
nature of the state.
Okay.
If the nature of the state had been more democratic, and if you look at the structure of the economy, to be frank, we had a very sound education system
Okay.
in the post-colonial period.
Okay.
We had a very good health system. It remains so.
I agree.
Now, the third thing we had, which was very important, we had a very good bureaucratic system.
Okay.
The bureaucracy was sound. In the 1960s, 1970s, when people graduated, the best minds go and join the bureaucracy.
Yes.
The bureaucracy wanted these people because a bureaucracy is important for creating policies
Yeah.
and for implementing them. And those days, the bureaucracy was good.
Yeah.
I'll give you one example. In 1969, we had riots.
Yes.
Post-riots, they said, we need to create a new policy. So they created the new economic policy, the Dasar Ekonomi Baru.
Yes.
That policy had two agendas, eradicate poverty and
Yeah.
redistribute wealth. And if you look at that time, in the first 10 years, they did very well. The first thing they did was, they went and built schools,
Yeah.
the Mara Science Colleges.
Yes. Yeah.
Then they took poor children,
And
sent them to these good schools,
Yeah.
very good teachers, very good training.
yes.
Then these children were now equipped to go to university.
Yes.
Send them to university.
Yes.
Local universities, send them abroad. And you know what came out of this? A new Bumiputra middle class. Independent, articulate, intelligent, can work anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
people like you.
No, I'm way too. I tak sempat.
But you get the point.
Yes, I get the point.
By the 1970s showed us we had a policy which was supposed to address serious problems, which they did. Poverty came down.
Yes.
It was about 60% at that time.
Uplift the cycle, uplift the...
They brought, compared to what has happened since 1960s, now the poverty level has come down significantly.
Yeah.
That's a great success.
Yeah.
They created a new middle class.
Yes.
That's a great success. But what happened after the 1980s? The focus shifted from education to business.
Yes.
If you have an educated workforce, highly educated, can you imagine how they contribute to the economy?
Yeah.
Today, look at our education system. Look at our universities. Can they even get jobs? Everyone complains of how bad the education system is. That's an injustice to the young.
Yeah.
How can you do that to the young people? You don't give them good education. What future do they have?
Yes.
What hope do they have? Now,
sometimes I feel like they do it deliberately.
No, I don't think they...
I'm so bad.
You're too cynical.
They do it deliberately to be in power and for us to just continue being...
They do it because you see, I don't think they were deliberate in this, but their focus shifted.
Okay.
From the social to the business.
Okay.
Mahathir once said, greed is good. Go into business.
Okay.
Mahathir wrote a book. He was so involved in business. He wrote a book about SMEs and how SMEs should develop. We only talk about the Malay dilemma.
Yeah.
He wrote another book about SME development, developing SMEs for Bumiputras. He was consumed by that idea.
Okay.
But the problem was, if you want to create businessmen who are good, first give them sound education.
Yes.
And those who are good in business will go into business. Not everyone can do well in business.
Exactly.
Some will become professional, some will go and do other things, artists, and so on and so forth. Some will want to be technical people because they're good at technical skills.
Yeah.
Let them be. What you must do
We still need people in other areas.
Yes, let them be. Let them choose the road they want, the route they want to take, the life they want to lead. But what we must do is first give them sound education. Foundations must be there. Then let them choose. Mahathir took the other route. No, the most important thing is create a new business community, corporate captains, and do it quickly. And find ways and means to do it. And privatization became one method to do it.
Yeah.
And then he talked about this thing about greed is good, competitive fight. Today, that thing has backfired on us.
Okay.
This idea that greed is good is not a good argument to make. And you cannot say greed is good.
It's not.
Why are you saying such a thing?
It's really bad.
It's about competing, yes, but do it the right way.
Yes.
Do it in a way in which you invest in the economy, and that's hard work.
Yes.
That takes a long time.
Yeah.
That is not something you can do it in 10 years.
Yeah.
But here's the irony of it all. By 1997, if you look at the top publicly listed companies in the country, there were many Bumiputras there.
Yeah.
Halim Saad, Tajuddin Ramli, Rashid Hussain, Samshuddin Kadeh.
Yeah.
Mahathir had actually achieved his vision of creating corporate captains.
Okay.
But 1 year later, they all fell. What does that indicate? With the Asian financial crisis, they all fell. By 2001, there were no Bumiputras even among the top 20 publicly listed companies. What does that mean? How you grow a company is important. You grow organically from the ground, you create a brand products like Korea did.
Yeah.
World-renowned companies. You don't grow by just giving them loans and giving them privatized contracts and other kinds of concessions. So suddenly they become huge. And then they all grew big, not by being dynamic businessmen, but because they had the patronage of the state, of the government. And they did it by getting loans. Yeah. And then when the crisis came, the whole thing collapses.
Yeah.
That's not the way to build a business. Yes, you can build a company quickly through acquisitions.
Yeah.
But it proved to be unsustainable.
There's no like dia punya root, dia punya, it's like it's not like a tree, it's like a tree.
No foundations.
No foundations, yes. It's like a tree, right? Like you have to water it and cultivate it. Nurture it, yeah.
And that's time consuming.
Yeah.
To nurture a tree, to first plant it.
Yeah.
Let the roots get embedded. And then for it to grow takes years.
Yes.
Hard work. That didn't happen that way,
Yeah.
and we lost out.
Yeah.
And in the process, the ideas behind the new economic policy also got cast aside.
Yeah.
What happened to the poor? Today, NEP was introduced to help the poor, the poorest
The
in
poorest.
Malaysia. Today, look at Malaysia. And when we talk about poverty, where is poverty located? Kelantan, Kedah, Sabah.
And yeah.
One can include Terengganu, but these three in particular.
This. Yeah.
All three are Bumiputra majority states.
Yes.
This is where poverty is located, and located also among Bumiputras.
Yeah.
Where is the NEP for them? Why is it suddenly we have a class of corporate captains which grew very big very quickly?
Yeah.
Many of them now, some of them have now stashed their wealth abroad. What of the poor who still remain poor?
It's, as journalists or when you balik kampung, you see it. What's the most middle class Bumiputras can do to help their poverty-stricken brothers and sisters? We're also struggling.
I would take a different view.
Okay.
I wouldn't turn to the middle class and say, you go and help them.
Yeah, but that's how it seems.
That's not the way it should be.
Yeah, that's
it's
how
the
it
role
seems.
of the government.
Exactly.
Just like the government created a middle class, why can't the government continue to help these people become the next generation of middle class? They have taken the eye off the ball.
But
the most important thing, as I said earlier, is education.
Education, yes.
And that middle class cannot go and set up schools in.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the government's job.
Exactly.
Now, are we paying enough attention in our reforms to reforming the education system and putting us back on the right track? Are we focusing on the children who need good education? Take focus on the poor, please.
Yeah.
Middle class, you and I, we are middle class.
Yeah.
I think we can take care of our children. We can make sure they get
Yeah.
good education. Even if the schools here are not so good,
Yeah.
I'll get tuition teachers to come and teach
Yeah.
them, and I'll
Yeah.
make sure they get through the exam.
These are like people in the outskirts who are like
Cannot.
nothing. Kiri kanan depan belakang is just like.
And these children have to help their parents.
Yes.
Sustain them, get a livelihood for them, The children can't concentrate on their work too, their schoolwork.
Exactly.
They go to school, they get shoddy education.
Yeah.
The cycle of poverty continues.
Yes.
Focus on that. History shows us we can do it.
Yeah.
We did it. Malaysia boleh.
Yes.
So why can't now? Why can't we now go back, learn the lessons of history and target those groups that really need it and help them and get them out? That's the government's responsibility.
You know what? Like, I'm trying to connect here. 1MDB. Wasn't that like...
That is the point.
Yeah, 1MDB, the wealth fund, right?
If we didn't have 1MDB, the huge volume of money that was involved in 1MDB, 4.5 billion,
Yes.
just take that money and invest it in education in rural schools. Good infrastructure, good teachers.
Yes.
No point having a fancy school
Yes.
with no good infrastructure, good teachers. That money, just that money, if it had been invested in poor rural areas, given the education that the children needed and they got it, today we would have solved a lot of problems. And this happened going back, what? 2008,
Yeah,
2009. Started 2009,
Yeah.
soon after Najib came to power.
Yes.
15 years.
15 years
By
ago.
now that group would have grown up and they'll be in
Like graduating college, university now.
precisely.
Yeah.
We lost out. Our corrupt system, exemplified by 1MDB, where money was taken abroad and spent on parties and buying yachts and jets and what have you,
Yeah.
and lavish holidays. Don't forget the ring
Oh, yeah.
and the necklaces.
Diamonds.
And don't forget the handbags.
Yes. Oh my
What
God.
nonsense is all this?
And then the fact that they're talking about the sentence,
Yes, we are coming now to the sentence.
but whatever outcome it is, it's not good, right?
I'll be very frank, this is unpardonable.
Okay.
That's my opinion. Look
Okay.
at the volume of money involved. These are
There are
public.
a few other cases
And there
still
are
ongoing.
2 or 3 other cases still
Yeah.
pending, all 1MDB related.
Yes.
This is SRC. So what I am arguing here is, if you look at the injustice that was perpetrated through this Corruption Act, and if you look at what could have been had they not taken out that money,
Yeah.
and the number of social problems we could have solved That speaks volumes of why this act is unpardonable.
Unpardonable.
You did the crime.
Yes.
Now you have to do the time.
Yes.
Second, are you showing remorse for what you did? Third, and this is very important, will those funds which were taken out of the country or wherever they may be,
Okay.
will they be returned?
Exactly.
Stolen money, stolen assets,
Exactly.
will they be returned to the government? These are important questions too
Yes.
that we should consider. And
We paid like billions last year just for the interest, right? From the loans, from 1MDB
we're
loan.
still paying.
We're still paying it now.
We're still haunted by the repercussions, the implications of the 1MDB scandal.
I don't, you know what, honestly, I don't think people on the ground understand this whole situation unless you're already working on it or you're an expert on it. Then, okay, fine, you understand. But I don't think people on the ground is that angry about it, you know? Like,
Because they have not connected the dots.
okay,
If that money, I just said it, that 4.5 billion ringgit
yeah, 4.5 billion.
had not gone that way, wasted, but had been invested just in one thing, education.
Education.
And I am very specific here, rural areas,
Okay.
targeting the poor, the people, the young kids who really need it. And we just said, you said it,
Yeah.
today all those young children would be well-trained young
Professional.
professionals
Yeah, graduates.
who have hope for the future. That's what we lost out. Very simple.
Yeah.
Just think about that. And the children of that age, what are they thinking today? If that money had been given to me so that I could get a good education, I'm not asking for money, I'm just asking for good education.
Yeah.
I'm not asking for scholarships, I'm just asking for good schools and good teachers. And then I'll do the hard work,
Yeah.
I'll study. And then I'll study hard and I'll climb because I want to help my parents get out of poverty. That could, many young people are saying that. I
Yes.
know because I was in the university.
Yeah.
And they used to talk to me about these things too, what they lost out, how things could have been better, how their
Yeah.
education could have been better. And that's what we have lost. We have failed the young.
Yes.
And that's why the young today, they are so angry.
But they don't have options like.
And that's why they're angry. That is
yeah.
precisely why they are angry. They have no options.
Yes.
If you had good education, you have options.
Yes, exactly.
You can choose where you want to work. You can even go abroad if you want.
Yes.
You know, so if they have no options, what does that mean? They feel left behind. No hope for the future.
Oh my God.
And that's a bad position to be in.
Yes.
And how, at that age, are you really going to retrain them? Send them back to school?
I don't
We can't do that.
Yeah, I don't think so.
See how serious the problem is?
These are people like in their 30s and 40s.
Yes, with
you know,
families.
with families, yeah, exactly. And we don't know what's going to happen in the next 30 years. Like, I mean, we already know, EPF has already stated that by the time they retire, most people now will only have like 2,000 ringgit or something like that, about a month.
So that's an important point. You have put them in a category where low income, no options. Meanwhile, the economy has evolved. Today, we are no longer this manufacturing, agriculture-based economy.
Yeah.
Today, we are a tech-based economy.
Tech-based.
It's all technology now.
Yes, exactly.
If you want to really move up
Yeah.
in terms of jobs and getting a job,
Uh-huh.
you must be tech-savvy.
Yes.
And to be tech-savvy is a particular type of education that you also need, a good education with sound command of the English language. I have
Yeah.
no problems with the national language. We must
Yeah.
know the national language.
Yes.
It's our Malay is our national language. But in the modern economy, which is tech-based, I'm sorry, you have no choice.
Oh my God.
There again, that's why you said no options.
No options.
If you do not have a good command of the English language, you will have a problem in a tech-based economy. And that's where we are heading.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of problems here, you know. At the foundation of it all is get education right.
Yeah.
You get education right, you know how the economy is evolving, you know how to change the curriculum, you know what to stress in the schools, and the children are well trained, and when they come out the economy, they can easily feed into the economy. And that is good for the economy.
Yes, exactly.
The economy will grow.
Yes.
They will grow. They will have jobs. They can take care of their own families. They can take care of themselves. They don't need the government to take care of them.
Yeah.
So we can get it right, but they didn't.
Yeah.
They were consumed by greed. I blame the politicians the most.
Okay. Doctor, I'm so sorry, but our time is almost up for this session. I feel like there's so much more we have to talk about. But just like to conclude everything, right? The history of politics and business and what has led to what we are today. What can we expect in the next? Let's just say 2024. What can we expect? What should we do, and what can we expect?
The good thing is we now, for what it's worth, we have a prime minister who's saying that we must deal with corruption.
Okay.
The king has said it very clearly. He is going to deal with corruption. That's
Yes.
a good starting point. The king and the prime minister are both on the same page.
Yeah.
Our problem is, as you pointed out earlier, abroad, Malaysia has a very bad reputation, seen to be a country which is deeply mired in corruption.
Yes.
If there is a move now to clean up corruption in this country, a real move, that will inspire investor confidence, not only domestic investor confidence, but foreign investor confidence. If we can get foreign investor confidence coming up, and if we can get domestic investors also now to invest in the economy, then we should be able to get the economy back on track.
Okay.
Now, are we inspiring investor confidence at the moment? No. At the moment, there's no indication that we have inspired investor confidence, domestic and foreign. Second, if we want to have investor confidence, we need very good economic policies.
Okay.
Policies matter.
Yeah.
Policies tell us where the economy is going.
Yes.
The policies tell us how you're going to achieve your goals. Where are these economic policies that point to where the country is being taken, that will inspire confidence? I'm not saying they have not had any policies. I'm saying, where are the policies that really inspire investor confidence? Have they inspired investor confidence? I'm afraid no. So if we don't get this right, deal with corruption effectively, and get the right policies in place, then we may encounter a serious problem this year. And that's my big concern at the moment, investor confidence.
Investor confidence. Okay. All right. I think you can read more on www.sinardaily.my, and then we can check out more content with Dr. Terence on all our social media platforms, Sinar Daily MY. I hope you have enjoyed this discussion. Doctor, thank you so much for being here. I think we have to do a repeat on more in-depth stuff.
We have a lot still to discuss about all the
exactly.
Pandora Papers, 1MDB.
Yes, definitely. But for now, thank you so much, guys, and see you in the next episode. I'm Tassin Lokman.